So I'm going to do a very short introduction because you will see that he speaks for himself. Sylvain is one of those people when you meet him, you think, well, where has he been? You know, all of my my working life. He's smart. He makes a great impact. He's also one of the few global regional managers where I've actually spoken to some of his previous CEOs who reported into him, and they say he's fantastic. You know, so he must be doing something right, because he speaks really positively about his staff, which is always a good sign for me of a manager, and they speak very positively about him. So not only is he a logistics guru, but he certainly is a great manager and a great operations and people manager. So we might pick your brains a little bit about that later on as well, Sylvain. But of course, today you are here to talk about Africa, Middle East Africa, and the rising star, I think, of the continent when it comes to trade, when it comes to employment. We know that things are going to happen here in the future. And you're going to tell us a little bit about how logistics actually form the backbone to that trade in the area, not just intertrade into Africa and between Africa and the Middle East, but certainly also to the rest of the world, and how we can support that, and how we can make sure that we don't get left behind, that we actually move with the wave that is Africa and the Middle East. So thank you very much for being here with us as part of our eyeAfrica initiative to bring the people to Africa, and over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Leonie, for the introduction and for the opportunity to be there and share my experience and my view. My name is Sylvain Kluba. I've been I had the opportunity to work for 25 years in the Middle East and Africa, especially in Africa. I spent almost 10 years in Algeria, developed the network of companies for agility logistics in Africa, where we were at the end operating in more than 10 countries with 25 agents, more than 2,500 employees, and with a long experience and various and bumpy experience in almost all the corners of the continent. I will share a presentation, a small presentation that I have prepared. I hope that is it clear? Is it visible?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
It is.
All right, thank you. Then I will do a short presentation. The purpose and the theme of this presentation is to share how a global logistics company, or how a multinational who has no clue about Africa, how they will approach the continent, how they will, from an investment perspective, from a growth and expansion perspective, what are the key parameters they will consider in order to make the right choice and grow their logistics operations in the continent. Then, first thing first, from people who are not used to deal with Africa, most of the time there is no awareness of how large is the African continent. And I like this slide because it shows the magnitude and how vast is Africa. It can contain, it's not only one continent, it's the largest continent, can contain USA, China, India, the whole of Europe in one place. And most of the time, this map creates a real awareness on how what we're talking about when we say Africa. When we mention Africa, it's 53 countries. It's a large continent, and from a logistics perspective or from an investment perspective, means that we cannot be everywhere at the same time. We need to have a very strategic approach to be very careful in the selection of the location where we're going to step in, mostly by considering different parameters, but mostly leveraging the different expertise we have, matching the country needs or the specific area needs. Then, first of all, at a macro level, of course, it's a huge continent, has a 1.3 billion population today, with a very high population growth. The population estimated at reaching 2.5 billion in 2050. A huge domestic consumption of $2 trillion. We know that among the 10 fastest growing economies in the world, 7 are in sub-Saharan Africa. And then that means a very dynamic geography where a lot is at stake, and is obviously going to concern is the last continent that will represent will offer the most important opportunities in the medium and the long term. Then, from an opportunity perspective, we see that one, as I mentioned, is a very dynamic population and a young working population. Then there is a huge energy that is growing year after year in the country. Another element that I've noticed important, I believe, is that 60% of the arable land in the world are located in Africa. And in the light of the potential food crisis or the food challenges in the next generations, Africa will certainly hold a very important stake. And that means a lot of agricultural, a lot of food processing companies are already aiming at Africa in the long run. The third element is that there is a growing middle class in Africa, estimated today at about 400 million people. Middle class is we already consider middle class with an income from $10 to $20 a day. Then that means a growing population that is having upgraded lifestyle, upgraded consumption styles, and represent a vast market. Even I mean, in terms of population, that is called to be growing. Another element, because maybe the banks are not as developed, the bank network and the retail bank is not as developed on the continent that it is in Europe or other countries. It is interesting to know that 50% of the mobile money accounts in the world are held by Africans. And that will boost, together with the logistics, this will boost the economy and the growth of the economy in the African countries, and all what is the cryptocurrency, all the virtual accounts that we can bank, and we can do financial transaction and banking transaction without having a bank account, is going to be the first population that is going to benefit from those technology is Africa. Then that will be a strong booster, and that will accelerate the growth, and that is very understood from an investment perspective. The highest entrepreneurship rate in the world, we see that it has reached 22%. We understand that from the country, but the world, the average in the world is 7%. Then we're talking about a much higher entrepreneurship rate. Entrepreneurship means energy, means people, means people who wants to grow their country. It means supplies, it means import, it means export. There is a lot of things around the dynamic things around the entrepreneurship. And the last element that we see as an opportunity is the highest percentage of female entrepreneurs rate in the world. And women has a center place in the growth of the economy in Africa, and is in advance in some areas. Now, as a company or as a logistics company or multinational who has no clue about Africa and they want to enter the market and wonder from where they will go, they will consider a few key parameters. They will consider a few challenges that can be also turn out to be opportunities. First element is that intra-Africa trade is still reduced. It is still at its infancy. Statistically, it's less than 20%. It means that, for example, in Europe, the intra-trade is 60%. In Asia, is almost 60% also, the intra-Asia trade. Then it means that there is still 80% that is a one-to-one trade from the country to the rest of the world, and a very minor portion that is intra-trade, but is called to grow. There are a lot of agreements, free trade agreements that are being put in place to drive the growth of the intra-Africa, and will be a key driver for the growth of the country. Then, from a logistics perspective, it means that there is no one place that will have a huge leverage in Africa. We need to open operation, or to be present in multiple operations if we want to capture this the maximum of the trade in Africa. From a regulatory standpoint, and from a legal standpoint, local content standpoint, investors will look primarily for where it is easy to do business. They will primarily has the objective of which country offers the most stable regulation environment. And this is a key element, actually, because there is a lot of instabilities in different countries. I will mention one example from my own experience investing in Algeria in 2006 and 2007 with a massive investment in warehouses, in trucks, in forklift and other equipment. And all of a sudden, the financial law in 2012 forced all the foreign companies to have a 51% local partner. Then we were forced to, we had to sell 51% of our shares to local partners, then change completely the ball of the game. And this is not this is one example. There are many of them. Local content has one advantage on one side that can be deterrent on the other side. There are some countries, for example, where we can come in and open a company and start business immediately, like in Algeria, in Kenya. There are other companies where you need a foreign investment agency permit, like in Angola, and it might take 6 months, 1 year, just to have the permit to open a bank account. Then can be a red flag for some investors. Then definitely multinationals or a large logistics company will look at this regulatory element to make his choice on which country or where to invest. Inefficient infrastructure is a challenge from a logistics perspective and from a trade perspective, but can be also an opportunity. When I say inefficient infrastructure, it comes in my mind first the port capacities, port capabilities. We have experienced very severe port congestions in the recent years in Luanda, in Lagos, in Mombasa, and that can be a hurdle for the growth in general of the business, but also for the logistics development, but can be an opportunity because it's an opportunity for those who can, for those logistics companies to open a port, to open port concessions, to open dry ports, to offer alternative routes to the congested port. Then that is the question of the infrastructure. Infrastructure means roads. Some areas are difficult to access, like North Mozambique, where the whole infrastructure has to be built, and take years to do that. Security concern. This is I will mention an example. We made an investment in 2020 during before actually the crisis as agility. We made an investment before coronavirus in North Mozambique. We bought a land, wanted to build a yard to support the oil and gas industry. And in January 2021, there was the rebels attack. The whole Palma has been seized by rebels, and we had to evacuate all the staff Then security is still an issue. It's an issue in Mali, in North Nigeria. There are some spots in Africa that security is a concern. We speak about the geopolitical issues. It's an element that has to be considered. We see it today in Ukraine, but Nigeria has had its shares also. Personally, I've experienced having operations in Libya and with a warehouse with trucks. And in 2011, during the civil war, the truck has been stolen, the warehouse vandalized, and basically we had to evacuate the staff. We have seen the Arab Spring that has changed the face of, has affected in a big way the operations. We also would put in the geopolitical issues, the inflation issue. When we see, for example, in 2016 in Egypt, there was a 100% inflation that cut the half of the value of your assets, your balance sheet. The high inflation areas like in Angola, there were 30–40% inflation during the year 2016. And all these parameters are to be considered and are considered by the potential investors. Last element, the skill talents. As a company who wants to develop its own operations in Africa, the goal is to have as less expat as possible. It means to leverage as much as possible the local talents, and there are local talents. There are some countries that offer a full scale of local talents, but it's also where there are new areas of technology or technicities, like for example the contract logistics, the digitization of the freight forwarding that calls a specific training that we need to train specifically the employees. In the case of agility, we developed a training center in the UAE, in Dubai, and we were bringing the talents that we have identified, and for 4 or 5 months, sometimes 6 months or more training in the UAE, and then bring them back with higher responsibilities and to drive the operations in Africa. That was one mode of training. Of course, there are many. Then from a logistics point of view, when we approach a country, we want to enter the market, we have one range of products, which is the freight forwarding, the traditional sea freight, air freight, custom clearance, the road freight, both domestic and cross-border. We have the project logistics, contract logistics, and distribution. Contract logistics is a warehousing, and distribution, e-commerce, e-fulfillment, last mile logistics. These are all the services that the expertise or the products we offer around the world, but that we want to grow into the countries, into Africa, in a very specific and strategic manner. We have also, on the other side, verticals, can be automotive, can be industrial, oil and gas, that we have expertise in. Then in that case, when we say selectively approach, one example is that in Egypt, in Cairo, where there is more than 20 million population, where there is a growing retail industry, we decided to develop the contract logistics and invest in warehousing, invest in distribution, in the e-commerce, the last mile logistics, then and targeted all the consumer goods and fashion retail. And this is the model we built, and we had to recruit the employees who had these skills or potentially these skills and train them towards that. That's the model that has been developed. Another example in Nigeria, where we will pick only the project logistics for the oil and gas in the east of Nigeria, and then we have the model that is only around oil and gas industry. Then we will call the specialists in oil and gas, the people who speak the language. And if they don't speak, we will teach them to speak the language in Houston or in Singapore or in the UAE. That's the model. And then we have also some what we call the full range services, like in Kenya, where we decided to go after all the industries that are mentioned here and to offer all the products, because we believe that the market is, I would say, mature enough to offer the opportunities to develop all the products at the same time. Then, as we mentioned, is a large continent with a large with a lot of opportunities, but we cannot be everywhere at the same time. We have to come very selectively into specific markets. Another element considered by investors, or I would say from a global logistics company when they want to enter Africa and work on the opportunities, is the rule of the 80-20. Here is the rule of the 60-40, meaning that we picked 6 countries represent 61% of the African GDP. And it's important. Of course, there is oil and gas, the oil bias here in those statistics, but still it's fairly reflect the key markets that we can see in Africa. And definitely new entrants will privilege one of those countries to settle in and then to grow from there regionally. Now, freight forwarding. Freight forwarding, it's about trade lanes. It's about the freight forwarder things in terms of routes of trade lanes. And then we will look at who are the key trade partners. Then first of all, if we exclude or put aside all the mining, the commodities or the oil export, in terms of day-to-day consumption, the African countries are generally importing countries. If we look at here, the first trade partners remains the European Union with 35%. And what does it mean in terms of logistics? It means wherever we are settled in to develop some trade lanes with France, from Le Havre, with UK from Southampton, with Germany, from Hamburg and Antwerp, from Italy, from Genoa, and to build the full product that will reap the gain shares in the trade between the exporting European countries and the importing African countries. Generally, it's a volume game. The more volume you have, the lower price you can negotiate with the carriers, with the shippers or the airlines, and then offer lower rates that will give you more market shares, and that is a volume game. And most of the time, the freight forwarders will focus on key trade lanes, maybe 1 or 2 European trade lanes, 1 China trade lanes, 1 US trade lanes, and they will focus only on it to try to benefit from the volume scale. That's the freight forwarding approach. Now, in another approach to the continent is the growing population. I mentioned earlier there is a middle class that is growing in Africa. It was estimated for the sub-Saharan Africa at 400 million people who are consuming. We see in all the major African megapoles like Cairo, like Nairobi, like Casablanca or Lagos, Johannesburg. Johannesburg has been a long time. We see shopping malls being built one after the other, and that creates a new type of logistics, which is retail logistics that calls for a specific, I would say, supply chain that we call the import, with this very specific and sophisticated contract logistics, with the management of the stock, the last mile, the distribution to the retailers, and the stock management on behalf of the retailers. And this type of logistics generally cannot be offered by the traditional local players, and either new entrants are bringing this technology, or certain local players are upgrading themselves to capture those opportunities. Then definitely this is from the logistics point of view an opportunity for the next decade and even more, especially in cities like Abidjan, like Lagos, Cairo, Nairobi, where we see not only shopping malls, but also very large and state-of-the-art warehouses that are being built over the past few years. Another domain or another angle of seeing the growth or the opportunities in Africa is the oil and gas. The oil and gas, certain countries are traditionally oil and gas countries, like Nigeria, like Angola, like Gabon or Equatorial Guinea. And even though the world is looking for alternative resources, oil and gas will still be dominant for at least one generation ahead of us. Then what we can see today is new developments with new entrants in the oil and gas world in Africa. First, the one is Mozambique, with a huge in the Rovuma basins, which together with Exxon and Total will represent 50 billion investment. 50 billion investment. Looking at the GDP of Mozambique is above 20 billion. It's going to be a major change for the country. Some say that Mozambique will become the Dubai of Africa. We see Tilenga in Uganda with a new development. We are talking about $10 billion of investment in those industry with a huge pipeline, long pipeline of 1,800 kilometers from Hoima in Uganda to Tanga in Tanzania. Then that will represent, when we say that, it represents a lot of logistics just to supply to build the infrastructure, but also to all the peripheral industries like the power plant, the water plant, the cement factories, the villages that are being built, or the industry that are being built around that. Then it creates a world by itself. We see the new developments in Egypt with Zohr, Atoll, West Nile Delta. Even they're not that new, but there's new phases that come on. We will see deep sea activities in Algeria. Now, so far, the Algeria oil activities has been the south of the country. Now we'll see some deep sea with ENI. New developments in Senegal and Mauritania, in the Greater Tortue area. We see Namibia, where Shell is investing massively in Walvis Bay and Orange Bay, and we will see LNG power and oil power in those countries. Then, from a logistics perspective, definitely all these projects of high magnitude, and I'm just mentioning the biggest one, will represent a lot of opportunities and a lot of activities in the next coming decade. Another point is, another approach is related to the intra-trade. We will see some growing hubs in Africa, and especially with the growth of the free trade agreements. We see Kenya that will play, has already been playing, but will play more and more a hub role with the surrounding countries. We see Mozambique. Morocco has strategically defined himself to play a hub role in West Africa, at least around the surrounding country. Ivory Coast has the potential to do that. Then, with the ease of export with the free trade, the support of the free trade agreements, we will see areas that will be competing for regional hub role in Africa. Then this is the last slide. Just to summarize that, from a multinational or I would say a global logistics company who wants to develop in Africa, what are the key elements they will consider? First is to select the right market entry. In some places, M&A is easier, making an acquisition of a player and then to ramp it up. But not all the countries have the right players. Then the second option, the alternative, is a joint venture, either because there is a local content background that take us to choose a joint venture, or we have identified a local players has strong capabilities, and joining forces will multiply will leverage the offer. And if nothing, with a greenfield also option, we can go in a country, greenfield, open an office, start from scratch, but that takes much longer. Another element is pick the right partner, and pick the right partner is an experience from picking the wrong partner, which is very difficult. What is the right partner? Generally, a right partner is an entity or a person or a company who has already well implanted a good knowledge of the country, but mostly has a long-term view, is able to invest with the understanding that they might get the return not immediately, but in the long term. And this is what we saw. We qualify the right partner. There are some right partners. We need to make sure we want to develop solid foundations, and again with a long-term view into the country. Credit risk. In many countries in the logistics, we have to offer credit to the clients, and that when we don't know the clients can expose us to non-payments. And this is a key factors that take us to selecting some clients that we know, or onboarding some global accounts with us. And then, for example, I mentioned here next the success back-to-back anchor clients. For example, we want to build a warehouse. Generally, logistics companies do not invest speculatively. They will not build a warehouse and wait for the clients to come. They will pick a global account that will take half of the warehouse for a long-term contract that will cover the main of the cost, and the other half would be sold on the market. To fully understand the regulation, I mentioned the risk earlier, and that's very important to know where we are investing. To be careful, not every country has the same level of maturity in terms of logistics, and to be careful that the infrastructure we invest in and we built in are in line with the ability of the market to pay. If we come, and we had this experience, we come into a country where we have a super state-of-the-art warehouse that has cost a lot, but nobody is able, the market is not able to pay for it, and we become off-market, and then becomes a disaster. And last but not least is the talents and the people. As we mentioned, normally we try to have as less expat as possible. Then we need to pick the talents, and they are talents, and we invest in them for the long term, and we train them. As we mentioned, we had this training center in the UAE. They were coming 5-6 months, and then we were going back to on the field with much wider responsibilities. Yeah, that's I would say all the different parameters that in logistics company will look at when they will approach the African continent. I thank you very much. I hope I've not been too long.
No, not at all. It was super interesting. Thank you so much. It's a fantastic overview, a fantastic summary. We've got a couple of questions, if you don't mind, already coming from the audience. I know the first question was from Egypt. Khalid, do you want to pose your question yourself?
Yes, sure. Sylvain, I was just wondering, my first question, how does the Africa Trade Agreement affect the logistics industry and vice versa? What I'm trying to know is a strong logistics industry across the continent will play a role in the successful implementation of the Africa Trade Agreement?
Yeah, it will definitely. You know, as you could see, for example, in Europe, the intra-trade in Europe has been boosted by when the borders collapsed. Then it will be the same for Africa, but logistics company will be a key driver, but will not be the only driver. I would say that by experience, because this recently signed and implemented last year, this African Continental Free Trade Agreement, it is starting now, and we'll see hopefully that will be successful. But we had a history of it. There is a theory and there is the practice. From a theoretical point of view, potentially, definitely those type of trade agreements will have a huge impact in boosting the intra-trade. They will reinforce the concept of regional hubs. There will be a competition of who will become the regional hub, and they will force those countries or those hubs to be more attractive than the others. Then definitely to gain benefits of those intra-trade African intra-trade growth. But there is a practice, the practice on the field. We experience it with ECOWAS, with other regional, like the Southern Africa Development Community trade agreement, where it's half success. On the field, we can see that the border post is still bureaucratic. All the customs are not necessarily digitized. Then we still need like 15, 20 documents to clear a truck. We still have queues of 20, 30, a few kilometers of queues of truck to clear a container. Not the border posts are equipped for that. Then I would say that from a theoretical point of view, potentially it has definitely a driving force, and logistics will play a role in it. But governments have to support it. There must be a political will. And the key will be in the implementation on the ground. And we've seen it with ECOWAS, for example. ECOWAS was a great concept, but has been very difficult to implement on the field.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Khalid, you might as well, you had another question earlier on, I think about the, let's see, it was ideas and concept being introduced in logistics training and preparation to meet the growing challenges. You can explain maybe what you want to ask.
That was speaking of sort of like preparing the local employees in logistics industries how to face the global threats that we are seeing now, like the Russia-Ukraine case. New concepts in dealing and handling with handling security issues. Is logistics being sort of like regularly updated regarding the talent that's working in that industry? Training, development.
Yeah. There is training and development, and there is the geopolitical issues. Geopolitical issues, there are two elements. There is the anticipating the geopolitical issues, and then managing when the issue is already happening. Anticipating it means when a country is too dependent to one route, or is landlocked and highly dependent on another country, or then they need to anticipate. Anticipate is how to diversify the logistics routes, how to diversify the trade partners, how to build air bridge efficiently in case of crisis. And then there is how to manage a crisis when the geopolitical issues happens. And there is here a specifics of the logistics in war zones, and there is a specific know-how for that. And are there schools to teach how do we manage logistics in war zones? I'm not sure about that, but the anticipation factors is key. Now, as far as training people, training employees into logistics. There are two elements. One is who and how, and two is what will be the content and the main challenge. The who and how, I would say that one, there is education. We see more and more, and I've seen through the candidates I've interviewed and recruited, there is more and more university program, postgraduate programs, specialized in logistics, and they are very good quality. People come with the right foundations. We see more and more some national logistics associations, chamber of commerce that offer some, or even customs, who offer some training or some courses for the new development. And one thing that is very important also is the online courses. Today, so many students or even employees have access to online programs with certificates, with very reputable universities around the world, all online programs that give a very good strong technical knowledge that equip the employees for the market and for the challenge of tomorrow. And now in Africa, people have access to it thanks to the internet. And that I believe that will boost the knowledge, and it will increase the knowledge of the talents who are willing to not necessarily having to go to university overseas. And there are some private initiatives, like I was mentioning, Agility, who is doing this agility training center in the UAE. Now the content, what will be the main challenge today? The logistics is going through in a big way digitization, meaning that now we have to learn the digitalization of the logistics. Air and ocean freight becomes paperless. Contract logistics, everything is online. E-commerce is highly sophisticated and everything is online. All the new technologies like the IoT, the sensors, the blockchains, the RFID, all these technologies are dominating and more and will become at the center of the logistics providers. And those knowledge will be the one that employees in Africa will have to absorb. And it's coming. Actually, the online programs are doing that, and there are a lot of ones of very good quality. And two, the first players will educate, will grow the employees, and they will have this knowledge for the next generation.
Perfect. You've also, with that answer, actually answered. With that answer, answered another question. So that was perfect. Thank you, Sylvain. I'd like Evans from AIMS Kenya actually asked the next question. Evans, do you want to pose your question about which talent?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Sylvain, for such a good presentation. So my question was on that bit for talent. You had said skilled talent in new sectors is one of the challenges. So I don't know which these sectors are in logistics that you lack this kind of talent, and if you can maybe mention one or two positions that are considered hard to fill in your industry.
You mean that what are the key positions that are representing a challenge to recruit?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Then there are some. I would say that all what is around warehousing, contract logistics, last mile logistics, which is highly digitized and highly sophisticated, which is quite new in Africa. And generally, this is where we have a talent scarcity. And generally, the way to go around it is pick talents who have the basics of basic warehousing and take them for a full-time training in our operations, and they come back with a fully equipped to lead those operations. Another area is like all related to IT, the CIO or the IT teams, the developers. All the ones will do the work on the coding. Definitely, there is a scarcity and there is a rush for this type of talents. And generally, a lot of talents are very rare, or they are already going to high-paid countries. And this is where we face most challenges. But again, we have to do to compensate with the internal training. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think you did. So like when you say warehousing, it's like the warehouse managers, people who have worked in the last mile logistics industry, like sector. Yeah, yes. That's what you mean, right?
Yes, yeah. Because warehouse manager, when the warehouse operations are very simple and it's just a stacking area, and you do inbound, outbound on Excel sheet or very basic software, it's one thing, and this exists. But when we come to a fully integrated supply chain with expiry date management, with the line items In the retail, you have you have to qualify to store by size, by SKUs. You have a few dozen of thousands of SKUs. The level of requirement in terms of technology is different, and management is different. And this is where training comes to play.
Okay. So Leonie, if you could allow me, are there any, like maybe for these positions that are a bit hard to fill? Yeah. Do you have an instance where you outsource these positions from other continents or from other countries? Let's say you're in Morocco, you're in Kenya, and then you have to outsource a talent from South Africa or from the US because you basically did not get anyone from these regions.
Yeah. In general, again, we avoid expats. We will do it ultimately when there is no alternative, but we tend to promote local. And I'm not saying that to look good. We were doing it, for example, Agility Kenya, or even Agility Egypt, were 100% local. 100% Egyptian, 100% Kenyans, and it was very successful operations. Now, what we can develop is the concept of cluster. If we have one talent coming from South Africa or coming from Kenya, and we have invested heavily in him and has all the in-house knowledge, generally we will work on the internal sharing. This person will not be the CIO only for Kenya, will be the CIO for sub-Saharan Africa, and will support the operations, the IT in all the other operations across the continent. That's what we will develop the concept of cluster, and sometimes the cluster can be different depending on the position, but it's not unusual to see a CIO having 5 or 6 countries under his command, or not necessarily his command, but to support 5 or 6 countries and to support the staff locally in 5 or 6 countries. A warehouse manager who is highly sophisticated can support 5 or 6 countries to develop the warehousing activities. That's the kind of solution we're looking at.
Thank you. Yeah, very, very interesting. I think we've lost Sharif now from Jada Capital. Are you still with us? No, I think he might have left. He had a question, actually quite an interesting question about, saying whether the logistic problem solutions and propositions that are able to solve problems in Africa are coming from global companies setting up in Africa, or more coming from homegrown startups trying to solve local problems. And I think that also ties in a little bit, with the questions from the other partners from the US and France that we'll get to later. So what are you seeing? Are you seeing local companies rising up and coming in as service providers, or is it still mostly international companies coming in?
I think both. The industry is raising the bar every day, and the competition and the level of technicity in the service, logistics service offering is going higher every day. There is a question of survival. Then today, multinationals can survive because at global level there is a concentration in the industry, but local players at a point of time today they might not feel it, but at a point of time they will. A local company in Nairobi who has a warehousing and is doing the traditional warehouse and distribution, when facing the growing requirement and more sophisticated requirement from clients in the life science industry, in the distribution and retail industry, where we need to see where now the basic is to have online real-time visibility on your goods. Those local players, if they want to survive, they will have to upgrade themselves, and some do, and very well. Actually, there are a lot of startups that are mushrooming across Africa, that understood the technological challenge, and they take it, and they partner with the local companies and with equity venture companies that they support it. And definitely, it's not only the game for multinationals; it is the game for the ambitious local players who wants to keep their share and keep the edge in the game, and they do. I saw it in Kenya actually.
Sharif, I see that you are back. Sorry, that was actually your question that we were answering. Obviously, you being from Jeddah Capital, there's a specific interest in in investing into these kind of businesses. So I hope that you heard that. Thank you very much, Sylvain. I would like Bernardo, your question. You had a question about America and American investment into Africa and what we are seeing. If you want to talk to us about that.
Yeah. Hi, Sylvain. First, thank you very much for the presentation. I remember during the Obama administration, he visited Kenya, Ethiopia, where we saw in the news, and he announced investments in East Africa at that time. Then over the Trump's organization, we didn't hear much about this, and now we have Biden in the administration. So what is your perception regarding Africa as a whole, or East Africa, if the American government is doing anything in terms of investment in the region?
It's true that during Trump era with America First, Africa was not necessarily their priorities. But I would say that from a multinational perspective and Americans companies, we see a growing interest of Africa in the US. Exxon, just example of Exxon and Chevron, but particularly Exxon, has growing interest in Africa. They are going big time in Mozambique. They are very interested in new developments in Algeria, North Algeria. They have development plans in Egypt. Then American multinationals have views on Africa, and also because Africa will become a place of competition against China. Then even Europeans, they see that they want to have their share and not to leave their share to China, so that it becomes it will become a strategic place where the players will compete. Then I don't think that even we might not see it, but there are still some initiative happening from a private perspective from the US, even if we might not see it necessarily in the news.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If I can pass Nicolas from France, you also had a question. If you want to talk to us about that.
Yes, Leonie. Hi, Sylvain, once more. Well, I think that you already responded to my question when you spoke about your own experience. My question was about the penetration of big international companies, French ones, not only French one, like CMA CGM with their filial Seva in warehouse logistics. So my interrogation was about the repercussion in terms of recruitment, maybe for the 5 or 10 years, because you talked about that. Warehouse logistics means necessity to have managers, and these managers, they are not necessarily present in Africa, not all the time. Most of the time they are trained in big cities. Morocco is one of the big hubs for logistics for Western Africa. So how do you see the evolution?
There is an ambiguity. Some multinationals will 100% believe in Africa, and they will massively invest in Africa. And you mentioned the case of Seva and the CMS CGM. I know that they have very high ambitions in Africa. They made some acquisitions of Manica in Southern Africa. They have they are making some other large acquisitions. Agility was one of the companies that had a lot of ambitions in Africa. I remember the chairman in 2015 decided strategically to fully invest in Africa. It is going to be the business of tomorrow. And some other companies that will not see interest, they will prefer to leverage their own strengths. I mentioned, for example, DSV, who made acquisition of Agility. When they acquired Agility, they dismantled the African African operation. They don't see interest. They don't see their strategic views. They prefer to focus on where they are good at, meaning Europe, US, Asia, than venturing in Africa. We can see it in other Kühnenagel, DB Schenker, who are not necessarily very hungry to invest in Africa. Then Bolloré is there for a long time, because Bolloré has been sold now to MSC. Then they will keep on being some few players. All the players will not be there in Africa, at least in the medium term. And some of them who are bold or who believe in Africa, like in the example you mentioned, Siva, definitely they will be present. As far as the managers is concerned, I think it's the same issue. We have to pick the talents, train them, and try to retain them, and that's the key.
Absolutely, I think, and what you're saying is so true, that we're definitely seeing a rise in salaries. We're seeing it in South Africa. I'm sure our Kenyan partners are seeing it, probably in Morocco as well. I don't know, Karim, but we, because people can work remotely, or that there are certain skills that are in high demand in other countries, they are coming. They're looking at Africa. I mean, we're really finding it quite difficult at the moment to find technical skills. Of course, our IT skills. Our Kenyan partners are very strong in IT, and they also finding it's just becoming super expensive. So gone are the days that you can find a cheap developer or a cheap digital partner in Africa.
If you want to find an e-commerce general manager, it's almost impossible.
Exactly. But if you come to us, you come to us to AIMS, it will be possible. It still may be difficult, but we will find one if it exists.
The way is generally to find it, those skills overseas from Africans who have immigrated overseas, who are ready to return into the country, and they will come with those capabilities plus the sense of the continent, and these are the ones successful actually.
Absolutely. So we want to bring those skills back, if we can bring them back to Africa and help us succeed in Africa. Definitely. I want to, Wellington, can you hear me? We actually have one of our clients here. I don't know if he's listening. I can see he's still online. Wellington.
Loud and clear. I can hear loud and clear.
Okay, it's very nice to see you, Wellington. So Wellington is with a French company called Delifrance, which most of you will know, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And Wellington, what are you guys finding from a client perspective? What are the challenges to land your product?
I mean, as this presentation has been going, the biggest thing that I've been picking up is that the challenge of logistics, as much as the network is clients finding it, they're expanding their network within the continent. But the downside is that I work within the frozen category, and we find that frozen within an African context becomes a bit of a myth, And again, I mean, the world is upside down right now. Forex is an issue again. So the two main things I'd say, it's Forex and understanding the space of frozen. Africa, people will give you random stories and saying they understand frozen. You get to the warehouses in Ethiopia, for example, you find that it's just chilled. So that's like a downside. But other than that, Forex continues to become an issue within the continent. Countries like Angola, Zimbabwe, that suffer from sort of hyperinflation becomes an issue. But you find guys quite eager to do business nonetheless.
Thank you. Thank you, Wellington.
I'm saying that one comment is totally right, and it's right that the cold chain is underdeveloped. The infrastructure for cold chain is underdeveloped in most all the African countries, apart from few of them. But and it's a challenge today. But on the other side, it's an opportunity also to grow these sectors, and it's an opportunity for logistics companies and local players or investors to go full-fledged in it, because this is a real market need.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think as we improve our energy supply, which we can do if we look at a sustainable model, not necessarily the old ways of doing it, but if we look at wind, if we look at solar, I mean, Africa is the continent of sunshine. So certainly we can improve it, and with that we can actually, hopefully chill the products to the right temperature, and not just do to something cooler than room temperature. So I'm sure we can improve that a lot. Thanks Wellington, thanks for your contribution as well. Any other questions, anything that I've missed in the chat? I think we're probably ready to close off. Anybody from the audience want to add anything? All good? Okay, I think we're there and we're right on time. So just a few minutes over the hour. So thank you, Sylvain. It was absolutely fantastic. Very, very valuable. I think there's great food for thought there for our AIMS partners in Europe, to talk about and convince their clients that, for doing business in Africa, yes, it's interesting. It's always going to be interesting, but the opportunities are far outweighing the risks. So let's do it. And we look forward to your journey and hearing more about your journey in the future as well. It's going to be fantastic.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Leonie.